White House now, they had been so confident that they were going to sign immigration reform this year. For the first time, I'm hearing that there is some doubt seeping in, that they think that maybe the House won't act. What they need is they need something to sort of force Boehner to, like, at the last minute, bring it to the floor the same way that the fiscal cliff deal happened. The problem is there's no trigger at the end of this year. There isn't the end of this Congress. There isn't this. So I don't know how this happens by the end of this year, and suddenly now the White House doesn't see a path to how this happens. Right.
Fires all around.
All right, there you go. Chuck Todd of NBC News. The White House doesn't necessarily see a path for immigration reform this year. What a shame. Welcome back to hour number 2 here of the Steve Malzberg Show. And joining us now is our friend John Fund, Newsmax Contributor. And, John, you wrote a piece which you started out by using that quote to tie in immigration reform to Obamacare and how one affects the other. How you doing, my friend?
Pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Well, tell us about your tying Obamacare and immigration reform kind of together.
Well, Obamacare passed Congress by a single vote in the United States Senate, and then it went into effect. It passed constitutional muster of the Supreme Court by a single vote, but it's the law of the land. But it's obviously not working well. I mean, Senator Max Baucus, the Democratic chairman of the Finance Committee, calls it a train wreck, and he's the one who helped write it. But it's still the law of the land. But just in the last week, we've seen 3 things happen. The Obama administration ignored the law in saying the employer mandate is delayed by a year. It announced they're not going to verify income for the eligibility for federal subsidies to buy insurance on these exchanges. And then it said, well, we're going to throw out the formula for calculating how much more insurance companies can charge smokers. These are all things that happened in the last week. No consultation with Congress, happened in the dead of night before or around a holiday. And now Congress is expected to pass a 1,200-page immigration bill full of waivers and potential loopholes, and they're going to trust the Obama administration to enforce the law? I don't think so. Any administration that is so lawless that it basically says we don't need no stinking laws, as the treasurer of the Sierra Madre quote went. I mean, you can't, even if the bill worked as designed, you can't trust them to implement it. So a lot of Republican members of Congress are saying, what difference does it make? We pass a law, they're just going to change it and reinterpret it.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, in the Senate, it did not pass by one vote. It passed overwhelmingly with the help of, I think, 13 so-called Republicans. And in the House, we could, I hope, that John Boehner sticks to his guns and his word and doesn't bring any bill that doesn't have the support of the majority of Republicans. Having said that, it is John Boehner. So it does appear, notwithstanding everything you just said, if we use the Senate as a gauge, there should be more distrust. It should be harder to pass than health care was. But in the Senate, at least, having seen what has happened with health care, the Senate went ahead with Republican support and passed it anyway.
Well, the most egregious changes of the bill happened after the Senate passed that, and I've spoken with at least 2 Republican senators who say they think the result in the Senate would have been significantly closer if the vote had happened after these Obamacare changes. So I think this does change the political calculus. The Obama administration is basically saying we make up the law as we go along. We live by the rule of men, not by the rule of law. And I think this will have an effect on the Republicans in the Congress, because who wants to be taken as a complete chump? In other words, it's like Lucy and Charlie Brown on the football. I mean, you pass the immigration bill, you tell your constituents you're going to secure the border, and the Obama administration ignores border security and just says, we'll get back to you. I don't think any Republican congressman wants to be in that position of basically being played a fool.
We're talking to John Fund, Newsmax Contributor here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let's talk about running roughshod over the Constitution. And he does it over and over. If this never happened, we could still talk about many instances. But deciding, I mean, I don't know why there hasn't been a challenge. I don't know why someone in the Republican Party or some constitutional group or civil rights group that leans to the right or somewhere hasn't filed a lawsuit and said, well, what do you mean you're not gonna how could the president unilaterally declare we're not going to enforce this law, which was due to go into effect for another year because I don't want to?
Well, even though we're a litigious country, that doesn't mean that every lawsuit has standing or a right to be in court. To have a lawsuit, you have to have a party that has seen some direct harm as a result of it. Now, in theory, you could have an employee of a company sue, once the law doesn't take effect. But that has to come after what Obama does, and it takes, a year and a half in court to resolve that. The Obama administration basically believes, give us some time and we'll make this law work. So it's not that there can't be a lawsuit filed, although I think Congress would have trouble suing over this because the courts would say this is a political dispute between the branches, we don't get involved. But Obama is basically betting on the fact that our courts are too slow to catch up with them, while it will still do some good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you think that the Republicans will emerge as heroes to their constituency at least and fight this and not go along with it?
I think the Republicans want to pass an immigration bill, but they do not necessarily want to go along with the Senate's path to citizenship. Some Republicans I talk to in the House say, look, a path to legal residency we can talk about, but citizenship is something special. So the Democrats, of course, insist on citizenship. That's the single most important thing in any immigration law because they want the votes that these people represent. So I think we may see an impasse. Both houses passing an immigration bill, but it going to conference committee and there being a real sticking point, which is the path to citizenship. And I don't see that easily resolved, which is why the betting is there's a less than 50% chance this thing becomes law.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will keep watching and keep reading your writings, sir. Very great piece. And